No audio problems?
Oh, okay, people. So I'm here with Christian Vinces. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Vinces?
that's correct.
Okay,
Vinces.
Christian Vinces, who is the writer, producer, and director of All Who Loved Her. Yeah, a new, ooh, I say a thriller. Thriller? Would you
Thriller.
call it a thriller?
Hmm.
Yeah, a new indie thriller that is very intriguing, Christian. Very intriguing. Like I wasn't quite sure what to expect. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Because all of these things, you're rolling the dice, man. You're taking a look at something and you hope you're gonna like it. You never know. You never know. Um, and I thought you came out the gate hard, right? You've got the voice, you've got the Brianna's voiceover, and then
Hmm.
talking about you know a murder of passion, right? She gives the quote about the head on the kitchen table, and then you just like, okay, all right, is that what we're doing here? So yeah, so we open with that, and then yeah, the film kind of gets going, and we're seeing her with her mum, and then her with a girlfriend. So there's these two different relationships, and then her with her lecturer, and you do get this weird sort of sense, this weird sort of vibe, and I was just like, oh, this is so intriguing because it's so hard. It is so hard to pinpoint out the gate like where this was gonna go and what was gonna happen. So it's like, yeah, and I will say, Christian, I did enjoy the film. I very much enjoyed the film.
Thank you.
I at the end of the film, I was like, wait, so what? No, like where? Huh? But you could just. What's happening here?
I'm happy you liked it.
Now, hey, there's a lot I want to ask you, man. So, all right, out the gate, right? Out the gate. Where did this story, like, where did it come from? What was the impetus with this?
There is there is a story I've been trying to do for a while, which is inspired on a short story by Garcia Marquez, which is a chronicle of a death foretold, and it's basically about a crime that everybody knows is going to happen, but ironically nobody does anything to stop it because everybody thinks somebody else will.
Mm, mm, mm.
And I was trying to do an urban take on it, and then the story evolved into the thriller, and with more of a surprise. In retrospective, you have already seen the film. If you watched it again, you may start seeing all the cues that are right there in front of you all along. So that's where the idea came from, like trying to make a story that where the clues are there, we don't see them because we kind of choose not to.
No, so right, there was the first twist that you throw up, right? I don't want to say too much, but the first one that you kind of introduce on who did it, right?
Mhm.
Now, I was thinking, this person seems very interested in these certain things, right? So I thought, I think, I think that person, but then straight out the gate, you give us that person, right? You give us that person with
Yep.
like not a definite this person, but there are a lot. There's evidence, there's suspicions, and I was like, huh, that's interesting. Huh, mate, did I see something wrong? Like, am I thinking? Am I jumping to assumptions because it's so readily put out there? So that gave me a little bit of pause. but I was just then thinking, all right, how are we going to spin this? So there was certain assumptions I was making throughout the film, thinking, oh, did this or did this? But then you just think to yourself, no, but if that happened, then surely that would have, no, but then that would have. So you are guessing at every point of the film, even when there is this kind of a lot of evidence pointing in a direction. And then
Yep.
even towards the end of the film, you are still kind of thinking, all right, but there's definitely got to be more. And where are they taking this? How are they going to conclude this? Right? That's always the thing. And I I I feel that you laid it out very nicely, right? There's some things that you watch and like from the beginning you guess, okay, I think it's this, and the film, and it turns out to be that, but there's no intrigue, it's too easy, but I
Mhm.
think your story, you kept everyone guessing all the way through, and that's the real, oh man, that was the real killer with this, because you just don't know where the hell it's going to go and what the conclusion's going to be.
Yeah, like a lot of the intention was to make it a thriller, and having mentioned that I wanted to be a story where it's obvious what happened and who did it, that changed when it became a thriller.
Mm,
And one of the things is exactly that, it's like how to keep people interested and kind of guessing without at the same time compromising the actual meaning of the story, because the thriller is just a vehicle for the main message about
yeah.
like passion crimes being like more universal than we think. And to just the fact that laws bend and work differently about passion crimes is
Mm,
interesting in itself. It's like kind of you kill a man and you go to prison, but if you kill a man who was like your wife's lover, then it's kind of justified. And when you think about it, it's really weird. But yeah, so that's part of the message, in the sense of like, yeah, there is a thriller, we're trying to keep you on your toes, but at the same time the relationships are developing in the background, and they're coming and going and showing you what's there is more to it than just the crime.
yeah. So when constructing this, right? Because now you're thinking to yourself, okay, so it's going to be a thriller, and I want it to be obvious, but I don't want it to be too obvious, right? So did you have to go and edit parts of the story or add parts to the story to ensure that the integrity of it stayed all the way through?
Yeah, the first intention was, like I was saying before we settle in the thriller, let's focus on this character's journey and the emotions. It's kind of like, okay, if there is no surprise and you know what's gonna happen or what happened, and we just go in this journey with this person, we should share the emotions of this character as they experience them. And thus, instead of judging them, we'll be able to just experience with them these circumstances, these situations. But then it was very challenging to make it to be fair and just to that approach.
Mm-hmm.
So moving it into the thriller is how can we still experience the journey without spending too much energy trying to understand what's going on or who did what, right? And that was the kind of like the evolution of the story. That was the transition into, once you make it a thriller, you do want to kind of like people keep people on the edge of the seat, but at the same time you don't want them to be confused or overwhelmed with like, wait, what's going on? And like I mentioned, since the goal was to like have a story that is already evident, how do you do that, right? And the main thing was to keep the story and then remove two or three basic elements, so people, again, and like I was telling earlier, So when you rewatch the movie, then you realize, oh my God, all the clues were right in front of me all along. But it was because of the two, three clues that were removed that you cannot put it together. And that's what makes it a thriller.
Yeah. Okay. No, I mean that makes yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um so how did you, because I think a lot of different people do it, you know, lay their films out right in different ways. So did you storyboard this? Like how did you kind of keep abreast of everything and make sure all the elements lined up in the way that you wanted them to?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. There is a couple of things to talk about there. The first one is it was a very, very small crew. So we involved the actors. And as we rehearsed, we all kind of like became very clear what the story was about and what parts of the story needed to be shown for it to work the way we intended it. So, and this is important because part to add to the style of the film was to keep it very simple, handheld, natural light or practicals, just so we don't get distracted too much with the cinematography and we focus on the story and the performance. So some of the locations we didn't know until we arrived to them. We didn't have a chance to scout the locations. So when we walked into the room, that was it. We had 5 minutes to set up and start rolling.
Oh,
So
that, okay.
without that approach, the idea of storyboarding or trying to make it more cinematic was too dangerous because then, you know, you may end up getting nothing for being too ambitious under the wrong circumstances. So we will arrive to the location. I Because we all knew the story and what we wanted to capture, just adjust to the location and then go for it.
I have to say, I think that may be one of the first times I've heard, you know, what I mean, that approach, right? Because you know, because I think there is that level of control that I think a director wants. So to really put yourself in the hands of the environment, that's risky as hell, man.
Oh yes, absolutely, and that's why I appreciate you ask this because for many years I had the chance to try to be more cinematic and like really put all the resources in the cinematography and the looks, the mise en scene, making sure all the details in the background are there, that the light falls correctly and emphasizes. So a lot of the narrative will be within the cinematography,
Mm,
and but that's also very resource and time intensive. It's basically put, it's very expensive.
yes.
And for this project that is very personal to me, the idea was, what is the process? What does the process mean to me? Am I happy while I'm making this project? Am I gonna enjoy the process? And that's why it was very small. Like I said, it was like just three of us plus the actors, and we move together. So it's like a collaboration. We all are helping. Each of us is doing something. Nothing really unheard of for independent films, but the main idea was sharing the responsibility. And like you said, it's like I don't feel we put ourselves on the hands on the environment as much as I put myself on the hand of the crew and the talent. And just like each of you have a talent and you have been like improving it over time, and we're gonna rehearse. We all are gonna like be clear in what the final goal is, and each of us is gonna try to use our talents to get us all there. And
Mm,
and that was a little bit approach. And the interesting thing is, and I hope I think this is gonna come up when you talk to Arthur. It was incredibly refreshing for everybody to feel that you do choose your level of responsibility, and at the same time, that responsibility is matched to your skills. So basically, you get a feeling that you are in the right place, doing the right thing at the exact right moment. And that is very fulfilling. And then when you're not doing your part, it's being enjoyable because you're sharing this with the crew and the rest of the talent. So you can just be cracking jokes or whatever. So it's a very, it takes off a lot of the pressure because you focus on what you can control and try to work around what you cannot control. So at the same time, it offers creative challenges, but like you said, it's very different from the regular approach that from many directors, including myself sometimes, have of trying to control all the details of the narrative. It's a very different approach.
Yeah, yeah. And is this your second feature film?
It is my second feature film, yes.
So that in itself, right? Because you made your first in 2008, I believe,
Yeah.
Mark of Cain.
Yep.
And so yeah, this being your second one, to take such a risk, was it like, was that, a level of stress and concern that you know what I mean? Like you hit the ground with your first feature, right? So you're building that foundation, you're getting people to pay attention to you, and then you kind of toss the rule book out and you do something completely different, right? Which, in a way, right, doing it like this, it does set you, it sets you apart from a lot of people, and it shows your ability, right? And it worked, right? But if it didn't, you're kind of undoing all the work you did with the first film. So when doing this, when coming up with this idea, was there the concern that this is a bit risky?
Yes. Uh, Again, that's a great question, and there is so much to unpack. I'm gonna try to keep it brief. The
No,
first,
no, you talk it. Hey, there's no schedule, man. You could talk and say whatever the hell you want.
okay, so basically, the first thing that comes to mind is a saying that I'm sure you know: "You're only as good as your last movie."
Mm.
So basically, you can have 10 awful films and you make an amazing film, and people will just pay attention to that amazing film because it was the last one, and vice versa. You can make 10 amazing films, you make a bad one, and that's the only one people will remember. So,
Oh yeah, we've seen it countless times.
yeah, so it's, and once you commit to doing film as a lifestyle, to embrace it, you have to detach yourself from the outcome because it can be very devastating to put all your resources and all your time and all your emotions on one project. And like you said, be terrified, and then something goes wrong, and then you're devastated. And I've been there. It can knock you down for like a couple of years, like while you try to recover from everything. And that's the interesting thing, like if you understand that you're gonna keep on doing this, that you need to keep on doing this, then you start like trying to figure it out how to make it more sustainable for you. And it eventually takes you to, why am I really doing this? Like, because, and a quick parenthesis there are a million factors that can affect the success of a film that have nothing to do with the film itself.
Yes.
I always remember this very simple story of John Carpenter's The Thing, which is a film I saw since when I was very little, and I loved it. It was really good. I don't know if you know the film, which is
Oh,
about
love the film.
in Antarctica. I always wonder how that film was not so much more famous or respected. And when I was in class years later, my professor told me, well, like it happens in filmmaking, A lot of successes have nothing to do, or failures have nothing to do with you. That film didn't do so well because the very same week it came out, no, 1 week before it came out, E.T. came out.
Mm.
And E.T. just took all the box office. No film that came around E.T. got any attention. And that's something that can happen to anybody. You can make the most amazing film, and for some reason you don't know what's coming out that same week or the previous week, and all of a sudden nobody even gives you a chance, and that has nothing to do with you. And that's one of the risks of doing this. So having that in mind, and then the parenthesis there, going back to the answer, having that in mind, for me, with my experience, it has become important to detach myself of different outcomes through the process and always remind myself, why am I doing this? Like, if there is a storm or a landslide while we're shooting the last day and everything gets taken away, and I cannot come back and try to reshoot or finish this film, if that happens, what did I get from this experience? So, and that's when doing this film, it was about of community, about us just having the raw talent, right? Like the actors, just go and do your thing, as if you were on a stage or just the location, just do your own thing, right? And then from there, for me, just trying to capture it, just try to capture it. And
Mm.
like you said, it's like, it's risky. Yes, very risky. Is it scary, intimidating? Yeah, but like many times when you understand why you do something, that is what you're chasing. That high is what you're chasing. So that's kind of like, for me, is it risky? Yes, but if you are clear why you're doing it, and that no matter what happens, you're getting what you want, then it's worth it.
Mm. Yes. No, I hear you on that. Now, the other thing I'm curious about as well, right? Before we get into the nitty gritty of things, right? Because I feel a lot of times with the things we do, the more we do them, the more comfortable we are doing them, right? And there was, gosh, what would it have been? Let's say a 12-year gap between your first feature and then this one. So did that kind of, because you've made some short films in that time, but did that kind of affect you in any way? Right? Did that make you think, wait, can I still do this? Like, you know what I mean? Like the familiarity of telling a story, right? So that you get into the rhythm of doing something, but then doing it completely different to how you did it the last time. So did that as well play on you in any way?
To answer your question, I always ask myself that, can I still do this every day? Uh, it's interesting. Yes, it is. It, the thing that comes to mind first is, I'm such a different person from who I was 12 years ago. I
Yeah.
have different fears, and sometimes I'm facing different challenges. And going back to going back to the whole, sometimes you have to embrace it like a lifestyle. And it's interesting because it's not like making, no, maybe it is like making music or like any other art. People only see the painting, or if you go one step back, people see you painting. But there is such a much bigger process going on way before you start like the physical process,
Mm.
before you start like actually acting on the inspiration, and within that logic, you can be, if you were an artist, you can be making a painting once every 10 years, but you may spend those 10 years in between developing the next painting that you're gonna do, right? So it's like in your mind, you're still working. In your mind, you're still in the process, right? Like for example, I may not be able to shoot the next project until later next year, but during all this time, I've already been developing many other stories. So since I made the first film, until since I made Ken's Mark to all who loved it, and this, beside the shorts, I've been developing a lot of stories that I'm planning to shoot in the years to come. And part of taking the time is allowing them to evolve with me, so I can go back to them and make sure that the message they're supposed to deliver is still relevant to me and resonates, and if it's being told uh, in a way that is like again powerful enough to me. So, but you were asking about like, was it intimidating to come back to make another film? Yes, because having said all that I said about the mental process happening in between, there is a moment where you pick up the camera and you are like, wow, it's been a couple of years, or it's been like 4 years or something. And then it hits you, it's like, this is happening. We're back on set.
Mm.
And interestingly, it is like riding a bicycle. It arriving in set, you like you mentioned, there is 1 second, there is one moment where you feel overwhelmed and afraid, but then everything else comes back
Yes.
and you just feel like you're back home. You're like, no, we're back at home and everything is exactly what we wanted it to be. And then again, it's important to try to enjoy it because the ride doesn't last more than 2 3 weeks.
Ah, man, I know, I kind of know what you talk about, right? So I've dabbled with stand up, but it's hard to get stage, that stage time.
Yeah.
So where normally you want to get up as many times you can in a week. There's been times when there's been a large gap in between the last time, and you step up on stage and you grab that microphone and you're just like, oh, fuck, man, it's been a while. But then the moment you start to tell that first joke, it suddenly, I don't know, man, it just floods you. It floods you with that, be like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. Yeah, I know this joke. Boom. And you tell it. And that adrenaline rush that you get, that exhilaration. And as you said, like it lasts for 2 or 3 weeks. Like, doing a 5 minute spot, right? You're just invigorated. And the time it's finished, you're like, all right, I want to do it again. Where's the next
Yeah.
one? Where's the next
Yep.
one? And you're just ready. You're pumped. You just
Yep.
want to capture. You want to, keep hold of that feeling that you get. So I kind of understand, but obviously this is a bigger stage than doing a 5 minute open mic spot.
Yeah. No, but that's exactly the same process, you know. There is like that, I'm sure it happens to you, like walking to the stage is the moment where the 5 seconds where you're like, oh my God, am I gonna be able to deliver? And as soon as you start telling the joke, you're like, this is why I do it. This is
Yes.
why I do it. I did, of course I'm gonna be able to deliver because I love it. And
Mm,
I enjoy being here. And then when it's over, you feel it was too soon.
yeah.
It was
Oh,
too quick.
definitely, right. And then you think of ways in which you could have improved it and be like, I should have done it in this way and I could have done that. And yeah, boom, boom. But then you're like, oh, next time, right? These are notes. These are notes for the next one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what happens. You know, you just take the notes, and next time is better and better and better. And that's why, like again, maybe you may be 6 months before you have a chance to be on the stage again. But when the time comes, all the experience from before is gonna be fresh and ready to use.
Mm,
And it's gonna hit you once you pick up the microphone. You are
yeah.
walking to the stage again 6 months later, and it's like, am I gonna be able to do this? But then once you pick up the microphone, all the experience from every single previous performance comes back to you, and you just like roll with it.
Indeed, man. Indeed. Okay, so let's get into the nitty gritty of it. Now, actually, there's one thing I was wondering, right? Because I'm watching it, and I got the kind of feel of a, oh man, what do they call them? Uh, like a Spanish, is it Fuela? The cereals, um like the TV productions, the stories, the
You mean like a novella?
novella. That's it, novella. Yes, I kind of got this that kind of feel from it with the music, and then like the notepad being a kind of a telling moment all the way through the film, like her going to the Brianna going to the notepad and writing down, and then we focus on the notepad and then we move on, and then the music playing and amping up in certain sections, and a lot of the close, tight camera work. Yeah, I just got this kind of, I don't know why, but yeah, I got the novella kind of feel. Um, was that something maybe you were thinking?
No, the thing is, I think it's unavoidable once you do a low budget project that is very dialogue driven, because that's almost the definition of a novella. It's like a low budget production, very dialogue heavy. And so once you have those things, it's so blatant that it's hard to not see the parallels. And that's what I think you are seeing. Like all those things is just part of the style, if you want to say it.
Mm, yeah, yeah, because I did think, you know, the close camera work, like using the handheld and all of that, it did help bring you into the story. And I think it kept you focused on certain things, right? So I think where if we're fully pulled back, right, you're probably going to look at the film in a slightly different way and make other assessments and jumps in, well, I think this happened, then this, and then this. But because we're in so tight on people, sometimes you are just keyed into them, right, and this story in that moment. And I think that really helps with the storytelling with this.
Absolutely. Like I was telling you, for many of the locations, we had a basic idea of what we were going to cover. And then we have to adapt to the location once we arrive. But once we had that, we were very clear of the things we needed to focus on, that we couldn't miss. And like, yeah, like having the handheld camera helps with that, because you can just pick up the stuff as you go, or as you are recording, like as you're recording an interaction between the characters. As soon as you finish, you just turn around and get the pickup you need from the object, or from the close up or whatever. And you kind of like, it's easy to match because you were right there.
Mm,
You know how it's gonna like fit in. So that, in that way, yeah, like the handheld camera helped a lot. And that was the intention. Again, we needed that freedom. We needed the freedom to just be able to get what we needed as soon as possible.
yeah. And how did the casting go? Was it a simple process, or did you know when you were writing the characters, did you have in mind the person you wanted to play these roles? Like, how did all of that come together?
It's interesting. That's a great question too, because for me, it's a personal process. Uh, Coming from smaller productions, I don't have the luxury to think, oh, this character will be perfect with like Samuel J. Jackson, or this person, and let me see if
Mm,
I can get them attached to the project. So it's more about we create the character with an idea in mind, but then in the casting process, you just have to open your mind, and look for an incredibly talented person. And then once you find that person, and this is interesting because it goes back to what we were talking about, trusting the environment and trusting your talent and crew. Once you find a talented person, you have to give them the character and let
Mm,
them develop the character on their own. Because again, it might be the first time you're working with this person, and you need to like again, they may create a better character that you imagined. You have to be open to that. And so I personally like doing the casting myself exactly because of that, because I'm looking for somebody I can communicate with, and I'm looking for people who can who are talented enough to think beyond the lines, people who
yeah.
are willing to add. And that's something you can tell. Sometimes people are really good at reading and they can read you the script, but there are some of them who go beyond and they actually add. They take a risk and they say, I think the character is more like blah blah blah, and they do it, and you're like, wow, I didn't think of that. But seeing you
Mm,
do it, that's so much better than what we imagined. And And I'm thankful that I've arrived to that process, because, yes, sometimes you do want to chase your vision and hone your skills to materialize that precise vision onto the screen for other people to get a peek into your brain as you had the vision, right? And this reminds me a little bit of Dreams of Kurosawa, right? Dream one exactly as I dreamt it. Uh, but then once you start bringing the talent of other people, I find it like irresponsible and silly not to use it.
mm,
If these people can add so much more, if these people can take things to 2, 3, 4 levels higher than I can, why wouldn't I take advantage of that? So, and then in the rehearsing process, then we get synchronized. I try to share my vision the most and see if, like, for example, they can add, or if I can add to what they're doing, because there might be things that they didn't think about. There's collaboration,
yeah.
but that's and then when the time comes to roll after having rehearsed, then you just have to trust the talent. You have to trust the actors. You have to trust that the relationship and the development process has been on point, and let them do their thing. So yeah, it goes back to what I said. It's like, even though I have my own vision, I can be very detached in order to get something better.
Okay. Okay. That, I mean, that makes sense. And did like were Arthur and Madeline, were they the first people, or were they later in the process to
I
kind of cast?
um I don't remember exactly, because now it's different. Like, you get all the self tapes first, and from the self tapes you do the actual callback. I mean, at least that's how we did it, and and you get so many self tapes in the first round. It's hard to remember who was who,
Right, right,
you
right.
know. So, but like, I can tell you, I know all of them stood up immediately because they were bold and they were adding something to the character that was like beyond what was asked.
Oh man, that's cool. Now, you said about this production that you did put yourself in the hands of your crew, right? So, with the rehearsals, but how much time did you spend together to kind of feel comfortable before you started to shoot?
I This is interesting, and I know everybody does it in a different way. I usually try to rehearse almost a month before going to shoot. And there is a process which is first, again, going over the story and going over the basics, and then going repeating, rehearsing over and over, trying to find new layers, new nuances, and things to that we may not have thought of.
Mm.
And after 2 3 weeks, you get burnt out. It gets a point where you're just kind of like, their performances are just like mechanical. It's kind of like there's nothing there. I personally give it 2 weeks or so, and then we go to shoot. And because of those 2 weeks, I think like the talent had time to process everything, and they are over the whole, over the burnout, over the mechanical part. So when they come fresh, but with all the understanding of the depth of the month that we were rehearsing before.
Yeah.
And for me, that works really well. I like the outcome. I see the growth with the talent.
Okay. No, that all makes sense, man. That all makes sense. Listen, Christian, I realize you're on holiday and you give me this time, so I don't want to keep you too
Okay.
much longer. Is there anything like that we haven't spoken about that you know what I mean, like you wanna go over?
Um, from the top of my head, just basically the film itself is, and again, many people may not see it, but there is a lot of processes that go behind the scenes in order to get a film done. The one important thing, and that came out very early in our conversations, is there is a lot of personal processes. And for me, it is very important to be aware of that. And like I mentioned, I want to emphasize how important it is to remember why you do it. If you want a red carpet, that's fine, but be clear to yourself why you do it, because that way, when you're in set, or when you're on set, or when you're writing, or when you're preparing, you will always be clear what you're trying to get, and it's going to keep you going. And the reason why I want to say this is because I know it can be very discouraging for people to spend all the work and all the resources into making a project, and they don't get it to go beyond a certain threshold money wise, and they think it's a failure. And it's no, dude, you may be sabotaging yourself. You have to keep on going. Like you mentioned, roll the experience into the next project, and do not deprive us of your talent. Don't let that knock you down. You always keep on going, always keep on trying, because everybody else has the right to see what you have to offer, what you have to say. So I would like to just say that, throw it out there for whoever thinks, for whoever may need to hear that.
No, I think that's very useful because I speak to a lot of first time directors or people that have been making a lot of shorts, but worried about making that transition to their first feature. I was at a sci-fi festival the last few days, and you meet a lot of people there with these sort of aspirations, and there is a lot of doubt, right? People worry about, oh, but can I sustain this? Right? How long before I make money? And it's just, I think those words you just said, right? That message, I think that's what a lot of first time new actors, directors, producers, writers, it's valuable to hear that. It's definitely valuable because all people often see is people on the red carpet, right? The award shows and hearing this film made 1 billion and this film made 20 million and blah, 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 and they hear all of that, but we don't always hear about those first steps, those first few films, what it took to get to that point. So
Exactly.
no, that's great, Christian. Yeah, I think a lot of people are definitely, yeah. like you've helped invigorate them with that. But how can people stay, abreast of what you're doing, man?
We do have Facebook page for Amaru Films. Our website is usually the best way, which is amarufilms.com, AMARUFILMS.com, Amaru Films. And just that's basically it. You can just like go there and see what we're up to, what we've done, and some of the things we're planning to do soon.
Awesome. And yeah, they could also watch this film on Prime and Apple TV, right?
Yes, and 2BTV, I think too.
Splendid. And
Yeah, so like
people,
if people can go check it out, rate it, that would be awesome.
yeah, and you know what? You will not be disappointed. This is man, this is very enjoyable. Very
Oh,
enjoyable. Especially if you like your thrillers, you like your who done it, that kind of thing. Yeah, I think this will sit well with you.
well, I'm really happy you liked it. Thank you.
No worries. And is there a thought of what you'll be doing next?
I'm developing a bunch of projects. The next two are thrillers too. One is about a mass shooter, and the other one is about an influencer who is basically dealing with a troll that becomes a stalker. I don't. It doesn't sound so interesting because I don't want to give away the actual
Yeah, 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 yeah.
the actual story. But believe me, they are really, really good. Very, very tight. And each of them has a very topical message, very relevant message to our days. So I can wait to share it with you guys.
Okay, well, splendid, man. I mean, after this one, everyone is definitely going to be, just waiting with anticipation to what you do next. And hopefully, Christian, once everything's in place, you come back and we can have a talk about it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the time.
Hey, no worries, man. You enjoy the rest of your holiday. I feel it's probably well deserved. And hey, all success with the film, man.
Thank you so much.
Okay, people, that is Christian Vinces. Go watch his